Kelly Cook next to me. We're your chair people pro tem until we elect somebody. I thought, though, first we should just have everybody introduce themselves so that we get a sense of who you are, what you bring to this lofty endeavor, and what you'd like to see our committee get done. So let's start with the chief.
Okay. I'm the chief, Mark Newport. Obviously, and what I'd like to see get done is a new police station.
Chief, I'm going to pull your microphone closer.
I'll go next, Counselor.
Okay.
I'm City Manager Karen Conard, and because I'm used to this room, and some of you may not be, when you're in this room and speaking, grab that microphone as the chief was instructed to do. And I'm here because I'm going to be part of one of the implementers of whatever is decided.
Hi, everyone. I'm late, also Kate. No, I'm Kate Coyle. I sit on the Police Commission, and also a big supporter of the new facility. I have a lot of experience. I work, my side job is I'm a prosecutor. I prosecute for another number of communities. I spend a lot of time in police stations, so and I do some real estate development too. So I've got a little bit of information on those ends that are an asset to this process, I hope.
Well, don't leave out the Rockingham County Commission.
Oh, yes, I'm also a
Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, I also am a Rockingham County Commissioner representing, I'm the chair of the Rockingham County Commission, District 1, and we're embarking on currently a $68 million new facility on the county complex that's going to house the Sheriff's Department, the County Attorney's Office, the Registry of Deeds, and a new community corrections program. So I've been looking at construction warrants with a lot of regularity, including today. So, you know, and working with the architects and the builders and having those meetings. So that's the other aspect. So thanks.
I'm Rick Chelman. I chair the planning board. I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor, and also urban designer, and at one point was director of development for a Boston company. So I hired a bunch of architects and got a lot meaning about $300 million worth of construction done in a 2-year period. So that's what I bring to the table. Hopefully we'll get some progress here.
Yes, I'm John O'Leary. I'm a former city councilman, and over the last 40 years, this is my 6th municipal building project that I've been involved in. I go back to Mayor Weeks. He and I were I was chairman of the committee that rebuilt the athletic fields at the high school back 40 years ago, and I've been doing it ever since. And most recently, I was chair of the library building committee, and also on the committee that built the parking garage. So I bring some experience in this particular area to this, and I'm a big advocate of working with staff, whether it be the police department or the municipal side, and trying to give them what they need to do their job for our citizens. So that's my focus.
I'm John Tabor, city councilor. Prior to the council, I ran Seacoast Media Group, and in that chapter of my life, I was involved in the construction of 2 printing plants and our building out at Pease, which was a 72,000 square foot building. I also was on the working group, and we can talk about that later, but several of us went down to a seminar in Alexandria, Virginia about how to build police stations and the considerations in building police stations, which acquainted us with some of the special needs of those kinds of buildings, hardening and extremely high building code requirements. So that was very informative too. And my hope is that, you know, we got to a resting point where we had a police facility up here on the hill that would add a great big wing. And I think there may be better ways to do that if we look at the whole space of City Hall. And there have been some past studies about that. So, you know, that was a box we hadn't opened yet, and I look forward to opening that.
I'm Kate Cook, and I'm on the City Council, and as everyone knows here, I've been very questioning about this process, and part of that is because of my background in nonprofit work and federal government work. I was on the YMCA board for the Southern District YMCA when we built our new facility and went through that whole process of breaking ground and building a new facility, and I know what that took, and I know what that's like from the perspective of an organization that doesn't have a lot of funds to do that, and trying to conserve funds. I was also interim chief of staff at the U.S. mission to the United Nations in New York when we were building our new facility, and we were in temporary space. So I also know the challenges around temporary space in being a federal worker in a temporary cubicle space with top secret clearance information in a space that, you know, isn't ideal. So I can understand some of the challenges that the police department has and is concerned about around temporary space and what the space looks like in the end, and making sure the space is adequate. But I also know some of the constraints we're under because of budgetary concerns. And so I've seen that firsthand, and I hope to bring that perspective to this group.
Hi, I'm Peter Weeks, former mayor, former city councilman, former member of the police commission, and as Mr. O'Leary said, I have been on as well many building projects within the community, be it the athletic fields, rebuilding schools that got burned, and so hopefully I can bring some age and experience to the committee.
I'm Mary Lou McElwain, and I live just over the hill on South Street. We've been here 25 years. I know a lot of people in the community and have been talking to a lot of people, so I'm bringing, I think, information from constituents throughout the city. And I've been on parking traffic safety for 10+ years, and I'm glad to be on this committee.
Thank you.
I'm Cameron Horak. I lead capital markets and corporate development for a local technology company. Our clients are global commercial real estate investment management firms. Prior to that, I worked for a private credit fund out of New York, and I moved back to Portsmouth during COVID. I went to school at UNH. I love this community. This community is where I kind of became an adult, and I want to see us make an investment that is right for the next generation of the residents of Portsmouth. And I know a lot of my peers love living here, and we want to see our families stay and grow here and spend the balance of our lives in this community. So I think I bring kind of the next generational perspective of what do we need for the next 10, 20, 50 years, and how do we make sure that that fits with the costing elements and all the other things that we need to consider to make this the right project for everybody.
Thank you.
Councilors, if I may, there will be a variety of city resources that can serve this committee. Two of them are in the room. They're on Mark's staff, Karen Senecal and Jackie Burnett. So I just want to make sure folks know that they are welcome guests and helping us out as we go behind the scenes. And there'll be city staff, most notably DPW Director Peter Rice will be joining us momentarily, but there will be resources that we can call upon as the committee evolves and figures out its course of action.
Thank you.
And we'll get some help from Joe Almeida as well.
Correct, at the direction of Peter, yes.
Mr. Pro Tem, if we're ready for the next item on the agenda, I would move that the committee elect Councilor Cook and Councilor Tabor as co-chair for this committee.
And he did ask us. Peter did ask us if we're willing to do that, and we're happy to do that if that's what the committee wants. Or you may have other people you want.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion on the floor. Any more discussion? All in favor?
My only reason for doing that is that I'm sure there's going to be times when this committee is going to need information from the city council, and what better way to have the co-chairs of the committee being on the council and be able to bring those thoughts to the full council.
Absolutely.
One more interjection. I think Mark and I serve as ex officio members, so I don't think it would be appropriate for us to vote, so.
Okay, and we have just one absence, I think.
Correct, Renee Plummer.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Well, Kate, we're in for it.
I know.
There we go.
Yeah.
Our next item,
Reviewing the charge.
doing the charge, thank you. So the mayor was specific about this being municipal building, not municipal buildings. It's one building. And I'll just review his charge here. Recommend to the City Council investments in the municipal building, which would, number one, upgrade the existing police space and improve the adjacencies of key functions to renovate or build better workspaces. 2, accommodate the public more effectively and increase security with a single point of service. 3, more efficiently allocate municipal services within the building. And 4, maximize the investment in critical building components to provide a safe, comfortable, and energy-efficient environment. So it's new police station and. But I take it from the mayor's charge and that we can look at this whole facility up here on the hill. What's the best way that we can repurpose it?
And if I can just change your word, that we can look at it, I think that we will look at it. It's not a can, we will look at the whole complex, yeah.
And this is Joe Almeida, who is in charge of all of the city's buildings.
The way I take the charge, we are first supposed to look at basically the footprint of the existing building, but that would include circulation needs outside the building on city property, I would assume.
Yeah.
I think it's also important, everyone should remember that the city, while we're only looking at this building, we also have to consider the fact that the city does have other spaces. So we can always turn to the city and ask if there is space for resources that are in this building to move elsewhere as well, if we have other spaces where others can move.
Yeah, I think that, certainly that's, that's part of the charge. I think that one of the things, a couple of things I just want to mention. First of all, I think at some point in time, and I'll just get these out, I think we need a tour of this whole building. I mean, most of us have been through the police station, but even if we've been through the rest of the building, things have changed over the last period of time. So I'd like to request at some point in time that we have a tour of that. The other question I have is that we all bring various talents to the table, but none of us, at least I don't believe so, are in a position to look at the impact of various design changes, et cetera. So I guess my question is, and again, we don't have to do it right now, but at some point in time, is there the intent that we engage a consultant, architect, et cetera, that will be able to help us through the process? And if that's the case, let's back up from that, because that will probably require, in my mind, it would require an RFP process, et cetera. So if we want to have somebody engaged at a particular point in time, we have to back up to see what we need to do to get to that point. So those are just some thoughts off the top of my head.
Maybe ask the city, Peter?
Just to follow up of Mr. O'Leary's, I think it's important that we know exactly what is currently in the building, what is being used, what's not being used, are the changes that can be made to that. And I think it would be important, and I'm glad to see Mr. Almeida come in because I know his experience, at some point we get a full layout of the building and of what the spaces are, what they're being used for, the size of the rooms, the size of the hallways, whether are the ways to put windows in parts of the building that they do not currently have windows. And I think that's going to need an architectural person to be involved. And I guess the question for the council, what do we have funds available to be able to do things that are necessary to really fulfill the responsibilities that we've been given? And if we can't do it in a vacuum. We need new material. We need new answers. I think a tour of the building is important for everybody to get it up to date on what's in the building today, not just the police station, but what's in the other 3 floors. Other areas that could be utilized and those that are not being utilized. We have the superintendent of schools in the building. Do they need to be in this building? So there are a number of things that need to be looked at, but I think we're going to need help in doing that. And I think you're getting an overall drawing of the building, the dimensions of currently and what it's being used for would be important.
Mary Lou?
Yes, I've had questions from community members over the past couple of weeks wanting to know if the 2 architectural firms that had been working on this project are still part of the next phase or the next group. And also, I looked up a little history of this building and under Wikipedia, basically. It's an 1884 building. I just want to look at the whole picture. And the last paragraph in this Wikipedia, which was on the DPW site, quote, "The police department is housed in a 61-year-old section of a former hospital that does not lend itself to 21st century needs and community policing." So we're working with information that the community has out there, and we might have to change that perception somewhat as we look at the whole building.
Right. Okay. Rick?
Picking up on what John and Peter said, in my experience working with architects, don't mean any disrespect to the architect in the room at all. I think the touring and the getting our arms around the issues are really important first, because before you go to an architect and say, design something, you have to know what you want. And you have to be able to articulate your program. Otherwise, you will be told what you want, and you will be told what you need, and we don't need that. So I think that's why this committee was established, to do those first steps and to try to figure this out. And there's a lot of work to do to figure it out before. I'm all for engaging, and obviously an architect will need to be engaged at some point, but I think it's too early. Don't get worried about that yet. There's plenty to do before I think we put out that RFP.
Very helpful to look at our sequence of tasks. Anyway.
And if I may, maybe we need to do, as a group, a deep dive into the work that the working group did first, because we have a wealth of information and a wealth of data. One thing I think that, most people aren't as versed in is sort of the need for adjacencies and sort of what is needed for a police facility to function in modern time. And so, I think as a group we need to understand the needs and then maybe look at the work that's already been done, because one, that addresses some of those issues with adjacencies and the needs of modern policing facility, but also it's like the first thing they teach you in law school is don't reinvent the wheel. And if we have these resources that we've already expended with architects, like why don't we sort of study what we've done the working group did thus far, and use it as a launching off point. Maybe it's a different direction, but at least it's something, a resource that we have readily available and expended.
I agree.
Okay. Peter?
I'm going to say that having been a police commissioner, I was a commissioner when it was on Penhallow Street and was involved in the moving to this building. Now, compared to what it was before, this was a Taj Mahal up here. And we sometimes don't always get what we want, but I think we need to look at the overall picture. And I know that the working group did a lot of work, but the city council has to make the final decision, and it never came to the point that they're willing to step up and by 2/3 vote authorize the bond issue, which would be necessary. So I think we got to remember that and look at what can we do to make everybody happy.
Yeah. Yeah. John?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, let me just give you my perspective and from a high level. When I've been involved in any of these projects, I have two overriding objectives. One is to give the people the tools to be able to do their job. And it may not include, as Peter's saying, everything they want, but gives them the tools to do their job. And the second overriding issue that I have is to give the taxpayers good value for their dollars. The rest of the things, location, what it looks like, all of that stuff is important, don't get me wrong. But I think I find that if I can't do everything for everybody. So if I look at those two objectives and try to accomplish those, I feel that we end up with a successful project. So one of the things that I think we need to do when we're looking at how things work and what to do is I will lean heavily on the city manager and the police chief, because they're the ones who know what they need, and they know how things work. As Kate has talked about, we've talked about a lot about adjacencies with the police department. Well, frankly, there's adjacencies relative to the municipal side of this project, too. The fact is that, I know there's been talk about moving things around from a high-level perspective. Those areas where the public has the most interaction need to be readily accessible. So, for instance, we're not going to take the clerk's office and the tax collectors and move them to the third floor. We're going to try to keep them accessible. And so I'm going to depend or lean a great deal on the city manager and the police chief to tell me what works for them, and then using that as a good basis for the decisions we make.
Might be helpful if we just take a moment to check in with staff. We have funds available, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Out of the previous authorization that we did last year.
Maybe it would be helpful to set a bit of a baseline of information, because I think some people in the room have the benefit of having served on the working group, and others are coming in cold, so to speak. So I think it would be helpful to talk about what exists in terms of information, what exists in terms of what we know about the history of the buildings, both the older and the newer. Talk about a tour, talk about the work that's been done and to address, I think, Mary Lou, you brought it up, that the scope of work most recently completed by LaValle Brenzinger is completed. They were largely hired to do a site selection. And given that we've completed site selection, we are in the process of developing an RFP to go out for the next phase of design, and Peter and Joe are nodding, which is a good sign because that means I'm not screwing it up yet. I can fill you in. So we can talk about the work that was done that informed the working group.
Good.
Yeah.
And then the next scope of work will inform the larger effort.
Good.
Intentionally. So I don't want people for whom this is the first meeting of this to think, shoot, I'm already behind the eight ball. You won't be. We will provide information, and we'll all be at the same.
Good.
How much money is available?
I don't want to say exactly, but it's, we only committed about 450 to LaValle's effort.
Correct.
So it's about 900,000, I think. But, you know, that I need to look back. We may have done additional monies for borings and things like that, so.
We did.
It's a
So let me
significant amount.
Let me
The first-
confirm and get you I'll talk to finance and confirm what's available, exactly.
But to bring people up to speed, there were three portions of money, so to speak. When it was specifically just the community policing effort, it was 1.4. 1.4 initially approved and authorized, and then for which bonding was approved.
Bonded, yeah.
So that's the amount of money we have currently to write checks against. Another 2.8 million to take on the work that would get us ready for construction, essentially, and then the 38 million on top of that. So of all those pots of funds, we are playing with pot number one, part number one.
Good, thank you.
And some of us on the working group, if we had to do just a few quick bullet points that all of you should be aware of. The chief and his folks did an extensive space needs assessment, square footage based on head count, and the unique needs of a police station, things like sally ports and interview rooms and all of that. This was then scrubbed and scrubbed down because everybody says, I want a, 30 by 30 office, and then that hits the wall, and then it's a 20 by 20 office, and down it goes. So it's been scrubbed a number of times, but this is the basic space needs, which come out to what, Peter? I think 66,000.
Somewhere around there. I don't.
And then
Scrub so many times. I don't know. Final started at 72, and I think we were at around 50,000, somewhere around there.
I think
49,
Yeah.
49 and change.
Yeah.
And then LaValle, we went through the site selection process. Should we go off-site? We looked at being over by Rite Aid, breaking ground, Greenfield, and that cost was $72 million. And the council, that didn't make it. That was just way too much for the council.
It was way too much for the working group, too.
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
I think the working group, then Tony Conviella was brought in with his engineering background. He did some benchmarking, found the construction costs of about $1,000 a square foot are true across the country. And we did comparables. There's always more that can be done on that, but, and then how do we, if we're going to stay up on the hill, how do we do that? And that's where the wing extending out was born.
So if I could, Counselor, I just wanted to remind folks that in addition to the previous space needs work that has been done, a staffing needs assessment that Counselor Cook had requested is underway. We anticipate that to be completed in June. So that information will help true up the space needs analysis, because you use the staffing needs assessment then to dictate what the size, the space needs is.
Mm-hmm.
We don't anticipate that to change radically. If anything, we'll see. Obviously, the third parties coming in, and these folks, this is what they do for their bread and butter. They review this stuff. So
Did you say June, Peter? It'll be ready in June?
Yeah, but prior to that, there'll be an opportunity to come, they're going to come and present to you all. So one of the meetings we anticipate will be, that they'll come and present and talk about the process they go through. They'll likely, be looking for input from you all. They will be interviewing the counselors and other stakeholders as part of their effort. So, they're currently, working with the chief to do the data download, and they're setting up interviews with them. So that's moving forward. And, we'll likely have indication prior to June, but the final report is intended to be by June.
Okay. Yes.
Has it been selected?
Yes. Yep, it's underway.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that was my general question. I know in my conversation with the mayor, he asked that we was ready for this budget session, which is completed in June, which is going to be a bit challenging if we don't have the needs assessment done prior to June. Is it possible to move that date up at all, or do you think that's just?
No. So I was confused with, what I took away from that statement from the mayor was that by December next, by the budget season next year, is what I understood. So he's looking to have it done by June this year?
That's my follow-up conversation with him, yes.
That's interesting. That is not how any of us took it away.
So that when we approve the capital budget, as is, we know generally where we are.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Is that
This committee, if my understanding is correct, will sunset in December.
Right.
That is
Next
correct.
year.
No.
No, this year.
This year.
This year.
Because with this
There's a new
administration.
Council's end, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, 25.
This is
Yes,
year two.
I get it. I'm sorry. I was
This
thinking.
25.
Yeah, this 25. Yes, I agree.
The,
Your checks have to say 25 now versus 24.
I understand.
Yes.
So, but my understanding was before, this time December next year, this committee's sunsetted.
This year.
It's done.
This year.
Are you
City
thinking that
manager?
it's this, we're this July, this June, so June 25?
Yes.
Well, we are I'll say we're at the mercy of the private vendor schedule. So we have dropped into their world. I'm sure they have plenty of clients. So
But it's the level of it. This is not done lightly. This is they are scrutinizing call-outs. You, Chief, you could talk about all the stuff they deal with.
They're doing a lot.
Yeah, they look at everything.
I think we might have some information in May, but I don't know if their final report's going to be done until June. But I was under the understanding that we'd have this done before the authorization of the bond would go forward, whenever that is, and I don't know when that is.
Well, let's clarify
Yeah.
our timeline and objective.
that would be helpful.
Otherwise, we have to meet daily.
Well, the good thing
Least every
is,
2 weeks.
there's a lot of information that we already have that's already been done on a lot of things we're going to be looking at, so that'll help.
But in terms of the key events, we'll need to hire an architect for the full design. And in order to do that, we'll need to know a rough idea, as Rick says, of what we want.
Well,
One of the things, just to go from what you said, we need to look at the HVAC, the electrical, all of the things for the whole building and what needs to be upgraded to be able to combine police and city services in the same building.
Well, maybe it makes sense to talk and hear from Peter and Joe about what the components of the next RFP will entail and the time frame for that work, because
Yeah, that's our
the RFP
target.
hasn't been written,
That's
let
our
alone
target.
So
issued.
we actually have a really solid draft of the RFP, so we haven't shared it with you yet, but Joe and I sat down yesterday and went through it. The tasks, other than the bulletproof type stuff you have in an RFP, but the initial task is to orient yourself, gather all the existing data, digest the existing conditions, and really say, okay, here's the existing conditions. Using that, you come up with roughly 3 general concepts, which give you, feasibility. They have to be valid, viable concepts. They can't just be pretty pictures. Based on that, we select a basis of design, which the basis of design just gives you, okay, we're going to build it X big, we're going to build it, this is the configuration, this is the general things, and then they develop schematic drawings, and then design drawings, and then construction drawings. That effort is a year and a half, 2 years,
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
It's not this, as you pointed out, HVAC, electrical, all those things. This is 3 old buildings And every time you touch stuff,
taped together.
you know, it's behind, yeah, it's duct taped together. You look behind a wall, and it's funky old pipe, and it's like, oh my gosh, what is this? So I appreciate the desire to be able to make decisions in the near term. I would not recommend passing judgment until you get to a solid basis of design, and you'll get an order of magnitude conceptual cost at that time as well. And I do not believe that will be any time in the next 4 months. That'll be.
Peter, how does this committee's work feed into that timeline and outline you just gave us?
Well, in terms of how I envision it, and I mistakenly understood the mayor's, what he said, I envisioned it would work perfectly, because the thought was that the space needs guys would be, or the staffing needs guys will be done to inform the architects that are doing the design. You all will be able to have input and understanding of the staffing needs, which would then inform the conceptual design options, which would then go to the basis of design, which you would have, and that within the next 6 to 8 months is a realistic effort. It's not realistic to be able to say, you know, by June or by the time you vote for the budget, you're going to have a number to say, yeah, we can cut back on capital, or we need to add capital. You know, I would recommend this time holding the capital budgets that you have. It's something that's been identified since 2016. We've been talking roughly $43 million since that time. So it is something that is, you know, based on the cost per square foot, based on the, you know, even if we're doing less of a square foot in an old building, it oftentimes, you know, the uncertainties, and there's a lot of things that happen. So, in a nutshell, Joe, is there anything you'd want to add to that?
No, just a reminder that, I'm going back a few topics here, just a reminder that we were contracted previously to select a site, not to really get too deep into design. We've done that. It's just a matter of how intense we affect this complex. Just a reminder that the deeper we come into this building, the more of an impact we have on the entire operation of the facility, to the visitor, and so forth. It will be intense. But if that's the way we have to go, then that's the way we have to go. The demolition alone downstairs will be, I mean, you will have bobcats getting downstairs.
So if I could, 1 second, Counselor. One of the charges that we heard was looking to create a point of service that was more centralized.
Right.
So part of the RFP was saying that, hey, you know, this isn't just a police station. This is functionality for the municipal complex, in addition to improving adjacencies and functionality for the police force. So that's a real important part of that exercise. And as Joe said, that has cascading impacts. So it's going to be kind of like a Tetris game, where you move one block, you can build something, you can move over. You build something, you move, and it takes longer. It's a little more expensive, but it will, at the end, it'll improve functionality of the municipal complex. It'll utilize the space here to a more efficient manner. So.
I was just going to say, I think it's really important to note that the timeline is going to be challenging no matter what. What'll be key is checking back in with the council on a pretty regular basis to make sure they're still on board with the direction that this committee is moving in, because that will help keep that budgetary process on track.
Yep, good point.
And now that we've revamped the budget schedule to be adopting a CIP to help inform the following year's budget, December will be a good time, and hopefully we will have some meaningful information that comes from this second scope of work in that time frame.
John? Yeah, I just a quick question with regards to, I know when we were talking before about, when we were on the working group, we were talking about the police station and having a central point of contact or a point of entrance. We were looking at, doing that in stages. One of the things because I'm concerned that with all that we're taking on, we have no idea what that dollar sign's going to look like. And so one of the things that I would suggest is that we may be in a situation where we're able to do a certain amount at this point in time, but some of it may be done in stages. Just a thought. And I know you've,
No,
yeah.
this is the conversation that Peter and I had recently.
Yeah.
The design, it has to be designed in such a way that it can be constructed in phases.
That's-
The building is occupied.
Yeah.
And there will be actually stopping points in the design where we designed to this place, we know we're going to continue.
Yeah.
Services we brought to a certain point, and that gets built into the cost as well. As you can imagine, it has a great impact.
Thank you.
Cost.
I did want to make sure we're all on
Yeah.
the same page with
Yeah,
that.
good point.
Yeah.
Construction phasing is going to be critical.
We haven't heard from Cameron yet.
Yeah.
I think based on what I'm hearing, the real important first step we all need to take is an inventory of municipal assets. What do we have where, who's occupying that space, where are there vacant spaces, and what resources ought to be placed where in order for people that need to work together in the most effective way. And I don't necessarily feel as though, based on the direction of the conversation we've had to this point, that there's a clear articulable understanding of exactly what that current situation is, that we can, in a very concise way, say these people are here and those people are there. And for me, I think we need to start the entire conversation there as the basis of having an educated and informed discussion about what changes need to be made, not just investing in this structure, but in the consideration of things like, as you pointed out earlier, Councillor Cook, the superintendent of schools being in the City Hall complex might not be the best place for them. Maybe they should be at the high school. And that interaction between their team directly in the school district is an improvement to their workflow. I'm not saying that is or isn't the case, but these are the considerations that I would expect this group should be taking into account in evaluating a holistic proposal, which, based on the charter that we got from the mayor, my understanding is that the proposal, or rather charter, that we need to work against in arriving at a proposal is what are the things that need to be done to this complex in totality for this building to serve the community for the next 50 years or more, hopefully.
Yeah. Peter?
Yeah. Karen, would you feel comfortable meeting with the superintendent of schools to say, if in fact we need to take over your space, is there a place for you to go?
Well, that would be my job, but I think it's premature to know who's moving where at this point.
Well,
But yeah,
we need to define
Yeah,
who's where
I mean,
and
Right,
it-
well,
If I could?
go ahead.
Yeah.
In 2016, we did a space needs analysis of this entire complex. So we have an initial cut from 2016. Yes, it's dated. Yes, there have been some changes made along the way. So I would suggest we update that programmatic needs of that, and then that informs
Absolutely.
everybody in terms of what are the needs of the building, and then, before we decide to
Right.
move somebody somewhere, and so.
I imagine you could footnote it.
Well, to that end, where we've been talking about a lot of different documents that have existed and been generated already, we're working with staff internally to create a digital library. So rather than send you all a bunch of PDFs that will jam up your email, we will send you a link to a page on the city's website where you can access all the documents, and we'll give a brief.
Thank you.
We'll put them in some sort of order that makes sense.
And it'll probably be populated over time, so
Right.
as we get it, we won't wait till it's final, we'll just start putting stuff in there. As Councilor Tabor just held up, there's a 2016 presentation that was given to the city council at their retreat back then.
And this will be public information.
Yep.
It will reside on the website,
Yeah.
so people can see it.
And also, there's the city council retreat notes, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
That narrative is
We
very,
had, the PD had those transcribed at the time, which was great.
yeah, right. And I asked Karen the other day, what is there for the 2016? And she gave me those, and I think they're foundational.
Yep.
Couldn't agree more.
Mary Lou?
So I just had a comment about the building in general. It's a late 1800s building. Police department has been here for 61 years. And as we look at it, are we looking to keep this whole structure with a police station for the next 50 to 75 years or longer? What's the goal there? Because that seems to me an important aspect, that as we look at other communities who have given up old buildings and have gone to new spaces, they're looking at the long term. They're looking at 75 to 100 years. And I think we need to look at that. I think we need to take a full scope of where, this was not meant to be a police station, obviously. And
Or a city hall.
well, City Hall is more, it accommodates the city offices more than it does a police station, for sure. So that's where I'm coming from, is that I really want more information on the plan, the time plan, what the building looks like right now. We've put in a lot of money to mitigate issues, and we'll have to do it for the entire building. So we're talking about a lot of money.
So
Yeah.
it's just worth knowing that there isn't a single date to the building, there's multiple dates. So the very first portion of the building to be constructed was what we refer to as the Cybolt. Then there was the middle section, which appears to be of the same date, is not. It was built at a later date. We call this the administration building. And then in 1962.
62, right.
Right, so and for the most part, it's really the 1962 structure that's going to have the greatest impact to the project, or the project will have the greatest impact to it. As you go in that direction towards Cybolt,
Yeah.
the plenums and the floor-to-floor heights and the construction type of the building gets very restrictive on the ability to pass ductwork through ceilings. There's just no room for code-compliant
Right.
And I believe,
renovation of. Yeah, so just to note, it's 3 separate years,
and
3
I
separate
believe
dates.
the oldest one is the Connors Building. I think
That's true.
it goes, that's the
okay.
oldest, and then it
That's
gets.
correct.
So the
Okay.
turn is, was it 1920s, 30s, something?
Yeah, we do have the exact dates on the website. but-
Old, it's not new, it's my point.
Right. I live it, believe me, I know it.
And there's
your
only
point-
probly one person in
point is
this
well
room
taken.
who
Yeah,
will
your
be
point is well taken. We're not.
still here in 50 years.
Typically, we don't design buildings for 10, 20 years. We,
Right,
50 to 100 years is where we're thinking.
So I just add, how this all started was we were planning on trying to have a standalone police station.
Yeah.
And we did everything that you were asking about to get out of this building, but the cheapest we could do and the lot that we had was $62 million, which everybody felt was too much. So that's how we got back to
Yeah,
here.
I know.
But you raise a good concern, which is this the best bang? There's the value, right? There's a distinction between cost and value, and
Yeah.
the point I hear from you is sort of, there's an issue of, we don't want to invest a ton in the building if there's then we're going to have to be going back to the well in less than 50 years.
I mean, that just seems to me that should be part of the, I know it has been for the working group, I know that, but I don't think there's been a resolution on that.
And one of the biggest challenges we have as a city is just land.
Yeah.
We don't own a lot of land space that we're willing to give up for municipal complex, and the cost of land in Portsmouth is
Yeah.
so high that if we were to purchase anything, it would drive up the cost significantly. And we do own this space. And the reality, and one of the challenges we dealt with, is if we built a freestanding police station that cost $62 million, I think that was the least expensive option offsite, that still doesn't address the challenges in this building that we still own
Right.
and that we still occupy. So the bigger question was, and that's how I think we arrived here, is what do we do with this building that we do occupy and that the police currently occupy to make it work for everyone for that long term? Because clearly it's much easier to not buy other property at a significant cost to the city. So, and I think that is our task. I think that that's what the mayor's really asking is, what can we do with this building to make it work for the police and whatever addition we need to do, but also make it work for the municipal complex as a whole for the next 50 years. We wouldn't want to invest that kind of money if it wasn't for 50 years.
To the councilor's point, the direction that we've received very clearly from council is that this is the site, this is the location. So we are not doing an RFP for a site selection.
No.
That is not on the table at this time. So
Yeah, and I think there's 2 questions you ask. One would ask, to be comfortable moving ahead with this building, has it got enough space and land for the long-term future needs? And are the buildings worth, have they got good bones? Are they, serviceable for 50 years? And at least in the previous analyses, there is enough space, and they are fundamentally pretty good structures. Some of the systems, HVAC, have their major deficits, or significant deficits. But I don't know. If you agree
John,
with it here.
John, isn't I think the threshold question that we're charged with answering is whether or not those needs could be met in this building.
Yeah.
And the reality is, some of us, myself included, who are new to this, there's a lot of reading to do to get up to speed, which I will do. And there's some things we need to do, as Cameron was pointing out, updated assessment. We need to do a tour and that sort of a thing. But I'm wondering if there's a disconnect with the process that Peter's describing, where we're engaging. I'm concerned that we're possibly proceeding down the path that I expressed concern about earlier, about engaging an architect who's going to tell us what we need versus letting this committee inform that architect on what is needed. That's a big, big question in my mind.
So, if I may, I think the whole intent was in the RFP. It clearly says that this committee is involved in that input process, and that is not something that they're going to tell us what we need.
If you tell an architect you're going to be involved in an input process, that's different than telling you what the program needs to be.
Sure, if you're a passive client, we're not passive clients. So
I'm not suggesting you are. I know you're never a passive client. But no, but honestly, I mean, does this committee serve a purpose or not, or is this something that should be dealt with by staff and the architect? I mean, that's, to put it out there, that's my question.
we serve at the the whim of the council, and the city manager directs staff. So at this point, our understanding was that the desire was to move forward with this location to figure out what would work in this location. Obviously, if it's determined by you all that it doesn't work, then we need to go back to the drawing boards. But the thought was, first we confirm the staffing needs, which would then inform the space needs. The direction we'd selected the site being this location. So it was, come up with options that meet the kind of the criteria that you all put together in terms of what we're looking for, whether it's adjacencies for the municipal function. Obviously the police have needs specific to their operations, but all those things together will go into the options that are developed before we're selecting. So the thought was that this committee actually would be integral in that process, and there's kind of three legs to it. There's the staffing needs, there's the architectural team, and it's you all, but there's also other stakeholders that need to be included in the discussion as well. So I didn't think it didn't seem like we were getting over our skis on this. It seemed like we could, it would work okay time-wise, and then how it flows. But obviously this is your committee, and you all are have the ability to direct how things are moving.
Well, the reason I raise it the way I articulated it, but also, or tried to articulate it, but also what I heard from the mayor, I only talked to him, I haven't talked to the full council, when he discussed the idea of this committee with me, was that he was looking for fresh eyes. There was a lot of good work that was done, but he wanted fresh eyes. And I think that's why this committee was established. So it's not to reject out of hand. I'm not suggesting that in any sense at all. And the fact that the police need a new station is a given. That's not a fundamental question here. The question is, in my mind, can it work in this building? Which, as I said at the beginning, I guess I would take to mean the footprint plus the adjacent property as needed to make it work, if it can work. I don't know all of you, but I know Peter fairly well. I know some of the councilors. If we come to a decision that it's not a good investment, I think we'd say that.
Yes.
So, that's what, I think that's our charge. But if also by the same respect, if we make these changes to what has been done previously, this can work and it can work well, then we should say that as well.
So can you go a little bit deeper in your thought process in terms of the timing? The from our perspective, we were not going to issue a contract for the full design. The thought was that we would issue partial contracts along the way to say, okay, bring us to basis of design. And that would give everybody time to have that input. But what do you think? Are you thinking that this committee would hire somebody to assist the committee and flesh out those options, or would the committee make the determinations based on the information we
Well,
have?
the manager's had her hand up. So.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull us back from the weeds for just a moment. We have at least a good couple months on any consultant by the time we issue an RFP, get submissions back, negotiate a contract. I think that's some good time for this committee to work. And Rick, I heard you say, can it work in this building? And I didn't hear it that way. I heard what can work in this building for this amount of money or thereabouts.
Yeah.
So I think we are charged with what can work. I don't think we're questioning the validity of improvements that in order to the benefit of the PD and the rest of what's in the building.
But if that what means a police department that's half as large as currently, then that might not be construed as working in my mind.
I wouldn't think that's responsible in our task.
Is it fair to ask for clarification as to exactly what I'm hearing a lot of question as to what the committee's charge is. Do we need clarification on exactly what the committee's charge is from the mayor or from the council?
Well, we read it at the outset of the meeting.
Yeah.
No.
We do have what the mayor gave us, which I read, which is really accommodate the police station's needs and get a single point of service for people coming to the building, and make sure that we've got a safe, comfortable, energy-efficient building.
Is there a dollar amount that we have to do it within? It's definitely not happening in 42 million.
Well, this is one of the challenges, and that's why we need to be
Complex.
reporting back to the council on a regular basis, because I don't know that the council is even at 42 million. So I think that that's really important for everybody here to understand, is that the council's not even at 42 million right now. And even though that is the placeholder in the budget, and so some of that assessment is going to be truly what is needed, and what gets us, the best that we can do within this space for the best price for the council. I think that's important.
I think there's also to be considered are the multi-year budgetary requests that have been honored and would potentially come off the CIP in the future that speak to City Hall municipal complex improvements. We are putting significant dollars in through the police department budget and through the DPW budget every year just to keep this building together. So those amounts could be lessened, could be changed dramatically if we are making improvements in the near term, just for consideration.
Yeah, there's also the additional cost savings that we can experience for new windows, a new HVAC system, because this building, and we spend quite a bit of money on an annual basis on energy just because of this building.
Yeah.
So that's something to also think about, the cost savings that we could realize. So
I'm just going to put this out as a straw man, but what I'm hearing, Rick, I think you're right. First, we need to tour these buildings, and we need a baseline of what we have now. Peter suggests maybe simple floor plans so that we all understand that.
Take inventory.
Take inventory. And would it make sense to focus on, could we do a new floor plan, and without getting into the heavy engineering questions, but where could the different work groups of people fit in a new way that meets the mayor's charge for a single point of service and accommodates the police station's needs. And it may be that, what I'm suggesting as a straw man idea would be we focus on a new floor plan that accommodates people.
I guess my only concern is if the dollar amount is a moving target, how are we going to do any sort of meaningful assessment on the efficacy of this if we don't know what we're operating with?
When you say dollar amount, do you mean the capital amount that the city has set aside as the
Not the-
envelope for investment, or what do we?
Well, Councilor Cook said that people aren't on board for, the council isn't on board for 42. So if are we operating with the construct of 42 million, or are we operating, if we're operating, that's very different than a construct of,
If I might,
You also don't have the votes for a $72 million new facility, okay? So there's got to be something in between the 42 and 70, and if it takes money to make this building safe, up to date more, that may be something that would be saleable.
Right. John?
Yeah, 2 quick points. One, if what we come up with doesn't work for the city or the police department, then from a personal perspective, I don't think we move forward. I mean, if we don't give them the tools to do their job, then we don't move forward. The second point I'd just like to make is I hope that at some point in time, somebody, and I'm not sure who it is, will reach out to the school department and let them know that we're talking about moving them. I mean, I don't want to be in a situation where it comes back to them through a back door. Let's, if this is what we're talking about, let's be upfront and tell them.
I guess my perspective on any project like this, and this is just the numbers of it all, you have to understand the costing element piece by piece, and taking an envelope and saying $42 million, let's fill the envelope, doesn't get you to a place where you've scoped a project where each individual component of the project is independently justified, and then the sum total of those individual elements gets you to a place where you've got a comprehensive plan that makes sense and each underlying element is coherent. Side story anecdote, we went through this process the last 3 years at Abenaki. We're tearing down our pro shop and building a new one. Complete disaster. We brought in an architect from Maryland, big national firm. We gave them a blank envelope, and they built a monstrosity. And we lit $750,000 on fire on architectural fees in a small regional club that now is wasted. So, to Rick's point, I've seen the bad side of this movie, and it sucks. So, there's a way to do this where we take the fundamental building blocks and say, what are the needs? Bing, bing, bing. What's the cost of each need? And you get to a place where you've come to a budget. And that budget is what it is.
Yeah.
So then we have to go sell that and defend it to the community, whatever the number is. We don't know what the number is going to be. So worrying about the number now is not a good use of our mental energy.
Right. Counselor?
I was just going to add, one of the things that we can do to help control costs to some degree, and there are differing opinions on this, but when you do design build, there's incentive to design bigger because you do better on the building side. So maybe in this upcoming RFP where we're hiring a consultant to look at design here, maybe we exclude them from taking part in the second RFP process to do the final design.
Who?
So whichever firm bids on this and wins the contract, then can't have the contract for the achievement of the plan, at the end.
There's a number of ways to procure construction. Typically, a renovation project like this would not be a design build. Because of the number of unknowns, it's hard for a design build firm to be able to put something concrete, specific. Design builds work great when you know the geotechnical, you know all the pieces, and it's really clear. The second you start to add complexity and uncertainties, it doesn't play well for the owners.
To Kate's point, though, Peter, I think you're exactly right. But I think what she's saying is if a contract's based on a percentage of construction, there's an incentive, an understated incentive to go bigger.
Yep.
And I've seen when I was a selectman up north, looked at different communities engaged in litigation, and in many similar process where there was advice for litigation that was then handled by the same firm making the advice for litigation. When that was split between two different law firms, one making the advice and the other doing litigating, the cost went way down. So even with professionals, there are reasons to consider.
Absolutely.
It's a contractual issue. You know how to do that if we get to that point.
The way we were proposing how to deal with that is you approve contracts. You don't give them the whole nut. So you don't say, we want you to design the thing, and they say, well, it's going to be a $42 million, so it's going to be this, 10% of that is going to be designed. We say, get us to the feasibility and give us hours and time in your billing
You
rates.
can do
So we
fixed
look-
fee for certain preliminary work, too.
Yeah.
You know, it's a negotiation. You know how to do that.
And that's what I'm encouraging is fixed fee, so you don't get benefit for over design, and you also don't receive benefit. If you don't think that you can get the second contract, then you're not designing to that with that hope in mind.
I would recommend you do a qualifications-based selection. You negotiate with that firm the contract value, and if they can't meet our budget, then we go to the next qualified firm. But when you have an amount you have billable not to exceed is typically how we do it. So you can say you can bill up to this amount, and your scope of work has to stay within that. But if they don't do the hours, they don't get that lump sum.
So you're jumping ahead to where I hope we'll be in a few months, where we're actually talking about actually doing something here. But as a suggestion, maybe what we need to do is a tour. Maybe we need to do some reading, and maybe we have another meeting where we can talk about what we've seen and, have a more informed discussion. But to answer your question earlier, Peter, I don't see this committee hiring an architect necessarily, making a recommendation probably, but I don't see the committee hiring an architect. That's just...
Yeah.
It wasn't my intent to imply that you would be the one.
I'll let Mary Lou go because
Well,
I'm going
many
to
of us
the
have
process.
said needs assessment. So I don't even know how many offices are in this building or who uses them or how many staff members we have under the city that are in this building. So it seems to me, as Rick has indicated, that we have to back up and really look at what's in this building. Who can be moved? Where can they be moved to? What space do we really have available, and what are our staffing needs and our building needs? We have to start from, that seems very basic to me, and we don't have that.
Right. Well, we need that.
Counselor was going to get us those resources.
Yes, that's all the homework. I think
Yeah.
Rick's saying, we're eating an elephant here, and you can only do it one bite at a time.
Yep.
So
It's a better way of putting it.
So to help
I think nowadays
inform,
that's a crime, probably poaching.
that's right. We leave. Don't touch the tusk.
to help inform future agendas, and maybe we can break this into pieces, I think we should schedule tours. Mindful that this is a public body, we will have to post that we are touring the building in pieces, and if members of the public come, members of the public come.
Right.
I think there's so much to see. I'm looking at Peter and Joe. We do this in two tours, PD side, city side, just because it's massive.
Yeah.
So maybe that leads into the next topic, which is schedule of meetings. How often does this group want to meet? And now I'm taking over, and I don't mean to. But in what kind of cadence do you want to have these tours and then come back sitting down and reviewing?
And we have quite a task to achieve in a fairly short period of time, clearly. So we probably need to meet more than once a month. Unfortunately, we should probably meet, yes, twice a month.
Or every other week.
Or every other week.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So how does this day and time work for everyone here on a regular basis?
Well, 3 of us are coming back in a few hours.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because I know planning board meets tonight, housing committee meets. I mean, this is a challenging day and time, so.
Right, this was an arbitrary date and time, so.
Right.
Wednesday might be better.
Wednesday afternoons are generally okay for me.
Wednesday.
The last week of the month I'm out of town, but
Okay.
dial in or something.
Wednesday. Wednesday afternoons? Does anyone
Yeah, Wednesdays are...
have a problem with Wednesday afternoons?
I do the third Wednesday of every month, but we can figure that out amongst us
We have the police commission meetings
on Wednesdays. All right, let's stay away from Wednesday.
So,
But,
but
well,
they're,
I guess
once,
what would
we
be
can,
hours?
we
In the
could,
morning, or
they're in the afternoon, but we could just work them in the, obviously, if we're only meeting once a month for the police commission, so we can just work it around those schedules.
What week does the police commission usually meet?
The third, it's like usually the third.
It's typically the
On
third
Tuesday.
Tuesday, but
This-
because of holidays, we have two that have been bumped
Oh,
to
two Wednesdays.
For, yeah,
For 2025.
Okay, so
right, January
Tuesday's the
and
norm.
February.
Okay. So, and the city manager's not available on the second Wednesday.
Third Wednesday, but.
Third Wednesday.
And this one's not available on the last Wednesday. Should we move off of Wednesday? Should we look at
Yeah.
Tuesday?
Just this month.
Oh.
Just for a conference.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, 2
Oh.
weeks.
Could we, so maybe
Okay.
second and fourth Wednesdays?
Yeah, that, and I can dial in or whatever, it's fine.
Not to a tour.
No, not to a tour.
Let's be mindful of that.
Well, you can get the.
Someone could wear a body cam and I can just put on goggles and I'll walk around the venue and everybody will think I'm crazy. They might be right.
We could give Cameron an individual tour.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
live up the street, I'll make myself available.
Second and fourth Wednesdays, is that where
If we generally look at second and fourth Wednesdays, this month it would probably be fifth Wednesday, just,
Yeah.
Right.
it's because where the first fell, and that way we're skipping a week.
30th, no.
The 29th.
29th and 12th.
And you're going to be not available on the 29th.
That's correct. I'll be in Las Vegas.
Okay. And you're okay if we meet? Okay.
So the second and fourth future
If
months?
the 29th is the tour, I'll work with Karen to find another time to do a tour. It's
Can we-
not an issue.
Okay, can we get some dates? So-
I'm unavailable the 29th, but that's okay.
All right, so guess what? We're going to
We've
get
got-
off the 29th.
Yeah, we've already got two not available.
Are you gone that whole week?
That week, I fly out the 26th and I'm back the 30th, so, yes.
Okay.
What's everybody doing Friday morning? The 31st.
How is
What
it?
about the Tuesday, the 28th, too? Is another option?
I'm not available Tuesday.
Okay.
28th. I'm away until the 29th.
31st.
31st.
How is the 31st, Friday?
I can't, but doesn't mean that I'm just in trial all day that day.
Would it be helpful if we toured the PD because you know the PD on the 31st?
Yeah, that's fine.
The 31st?
That's a
Yep.
Friday.
Yeah, I can, got a good sense
It's
of the.
Friday.
The 31st.
Well, City Hall closed?
We close at 1,
Well, that
so
doesn't
we can
matter.
do it anytime.
We're open all 24/7.
I hate to move us back to that Thursday, the 30th, because if Kate's not available, the 31st.
Well, we're not, that's not planning board or housing, so.
How is the 30th, Thursday, the 30th?
I thought we were just talking Wednesdays. We're not talking Wednesdays, we're talking
No,
Thursdays.
we were, because
The
we didn't
special-
have
the
people
special one this
available for the
month.
Here's a
29th.
thought.
We had two
Reason
people
to-
out.
To consider
we do
Friday the
next?
30th. Friday the 31st for the PD tour, because I think, unless, I haven't heard, Kate's the only one who could not go, but Kate knows the PD well.
Right.
Okay.
So can we fall off schedule a little bit just to make a PD tour happen on Friday the 31st?
Friday the 31st?
What time?
Good question.
Whatever, I'm wide open.
What do you do?
Noon?
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Would
Okay.
we be staying with Fridays? Is that what you're saying?
No, just
No,
the-
it was just for
that.
this tour.
Just that, okay.
That's going to be our first order of business, is to do the tours.
Okay.
So our next meeting will be officially doing tours.
Yep.
So we'll try to get both of those tours in.
Can we do
I thought we were doing 2 tours.
We are,
Sorry.
hold on.
We're gonna try to
I
get both of
think
those
it's a lot to
in.
do in one day. Do you? Or do you think it's smart to do in one day?
No, too much for one day,
Okay.
right?
We're
I don't know, I mean,
We're at a time, it's a tour. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like you just walking
that
through the
long.
building.
You just walk into the building, getting an
Look, I'm-
orientation.
It'll take it'll take a
8
couple
hours that
hours.
day.
10
It'll
to
take,
noon on the 31st?
it'll take a
Yeah,
couple
there you
hours.
go.
Yeah.
There we go.
And we can arrange
We have
another
the floor
time
plan
for Kate.
before then? Joe, can you,
the rest of
can you
the
send the floor plan?
Yes.
10 to noon on the 31st.
Yep,
So
Mary Lou?
before we actually tour, can we have a list of all of the offices that are within the building and what their staffing needs are and what their footprint?
Offices, you're talking, not police officers.
I'm talking about the building.
Building.
The building. that we-
If we give you a 2,000,
Well, if we're touring the building, I'm talking about.
Map.
We're going to
having-
tour the PD. We're going to focus just on the PD for
Okay.
Friday the 31st.
Just the
Okay.
PD.
Because I want to respect that Kate will not be here on the 31st, and I'd like her here. I think we'd all like her here for the rest of the building tour.
Yeah, okay.
How
So,
long should we figure, 2 hours, 1 hour?
2
I
hours.
could speak to the request to have the space needs analysis done, we have a 2016 version.
Right.
So we can give you that. That entailed, days and days and days of interviews with department heads, and it was not just like a spitball type thing. So space needs and programming needs are, a pretty significant effort.
Yeah.
So we can give you a dated one. Some things have moved a little bit. For example, the health department has moved down to where AIDS response was. The HR has moved down into the Cybolt. At the time that was done, Cybolt was not populated with city staff. And since that time, we've started moving people into that space. So it's just, just to be aware that that's a little dated.
I'm going to go make another bold move. For the tour for the rest of the building, I would propose the following Friday. We meet at 12:30. That gives people a chance to get in the building before it locks. That means not only you all, but members of the public if they want to join. I think that's also helpful to tour the building when staff is not here and when customers are not here. We can, right? I think it'd be an easier.
So
You're right.
February 7th.
February 7th.
On that, not the 7th,
Yep.
that we have
You not here that day?
a layout of the
Oh, we
whole
need-
complex by floor.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, we should.
But we need
you have
Joe.
all the
Hold on.
drawings.
Yeah, I have all the floor plans.
Hold on. We need Joe on the 7th. You're
Yeah,
not.
I'm there on the 7th.
We can't do it if you're not here.
I'm not here.
Okay. Are you here? That's not movable. It sounds like. How about?
I think we're herding
You are on
cats here.
Thursday?
I think we're herding
Yeah, that
cats. Trying to get everybody on the same page.
What about that
The 7th,
Wednesday, the 5th?
I'm gone for that whole week.
Okay.
which, oh, you're not here.
That whole week, yeah.
Week of the 3rd.
Correct.
Well, we were talking about the 2nd and the 4th, 2 Wednesdays for regular meetings.
Right, so we have another,
Should we meet before the meeting, to have the tour before the meeting?
right.
I'm also
So-
very good at
Yeah.
looking at blueprints.
Yeah, if we're looking at
So
the
The 12th?
how about just doing the 31st and doing everything, and then I'll separately schedule the rest of the building? Because everybody's
There's the answer.
available on
That's the
the,
answer.
Could we start at an earlier time of 9? Because it's going to just take us a little bit longer.
As long as we can have the floor plans
Yep.
by then.
Yep.
Yeah, we have the
So they-
footprint. It may not have, this is the specific offices.
Yeah, we don't have time to draft something for this purpose. We will dig up what we have.
Yeah, just what you
It's
have.
fine.
And it'll be
Fine.
digital.
The
It
municipal
won't be.
complex tours when?
It'll be on that, in that library.
We're going to do them both the same.
It'll
day.
be on the 31st at 9.
Okay.
31st at 9.
31st, both tours.
Correct.
9 to
Okay. Some combination of, I think it's my office will
Get all
send the
that, Jackie?
invitation.
Right.
Potentially.
Okay.
Starting on
that'd
the
be great.
12th? The
And
12th,
then we'd start the
2nd and
12th,
4th.
the 12th and 26th
Thank you for bringing us
for
back.
February.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And then the 12th of February
And the 26th.
and the 26th of February.
Same with March.
That's 2nd and 4th. And yes, it'll be the same for March.
Is this meeting at 3 o'clock?
Does 3 o'clock work for everyone on that Wednesday? That is something that,
Yes.
Claire, does that work?
Great. Yes, that worked.
Okay.
we could fill
All
it
right.
out. So we walk around
2nd, 4th Wednesdays at 3.
Can we maybe have
And update it.
one of your staff just send out the list of the every other
Yes.
Yeah.
Wednesday? Or
He
Jackie?
worked. Jackie's taking the notes back there, and between her and
And then Jessica and Joanna.
a trio of them, someone will be sending you
We're
out a
booked through
notice.
the end of March, and we'll take it from there. Is that good with everybody?
Yep,
Good for me.
yep,
Okay.
that works.
That works for everyone?
Thank you all.
Welcome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Six.
Folks,
I'm here.
thank you.
What's your handicap?
All adjourned?
Oh, that's okay.
Great.
No, it's terrible.